Welcome, beloved souls, to a sacred journey where the divine light illuminates our hearts. Your truth sight has been completely activated, chosen one, and these pretenders are no longer able to conceal themselves behind their well-crafted lies, because you can see right through their pitiful facades to the unvarnished reality they've been frantically attempting to hide. They feel exposed, naked, and afraid when you're around. They are aware that the game is done. However, this realization has been developing for months or even years due to a sequence of seemingly unrelated incidents that are now all beginning to make perfect sense. It didn't start weeks ago. Do you recall that friend who abruptly stopped talking to you after you pointed out a trend in their dating history? After you declined to support their victim story? The family member stopped calling? The love interest that abruptly left you after you questioned them excessively about their contradictory accounts? They weren't distinct occurrences. They were all a part of the same cosmic preparation, teaching you to spot deceit and increasing your capacity to tolerate the discomfort that others may feel from your developing genuineness. When three distinct individuals in your life reacted nearly identically to your candor last month, it became impossible to ignore the trend. First, there was that heated dispute with a loved one in which you finally revealed all the information you had been surreptitiously gathering for months. As they realized you had been able to see through their deceit the entire time, you saw their expression shift from one of confident denial to one of horrified realization. Not only had you caught their deception, but you also recalled the contradiction from the previous year, the pattern that exposed their basic connection to truth, and the inconsistency from months prior. And then you realized how generous you were. You've been the go-to person for years when people need time, money, or energy. You generously gave, believing it to be benevolence. However, you've seen something unsettling lately. Those that take the most give the least in return. Even worse, kids have started to take your generosity for granted and get annoyed when you don't provide for their basic needs. Their response made everything clear when you eventually pointed out this disparity. They were energy vampires who mistook your generosity for weakness, not appreciative pals who had fallen on hard times. Possibly the most telling was the third occurrence. You've been seeing someone from your past again, but not in the way you might have anticipated. They've been getting ready, working on themselves, after realizing how utterly ineffective their prior strategy for interacting with you was. They were well aware that it would be impossible, not just difficult, to keep up any sort of facade around you. People who are thinking about joining your circle are both drawn to and intimidated by your reputation as someone who can see dishonesty. This reputation didn't develop on purpose. Rather, it developed organically when you ceased acting as though you didn't see things that were clearly visible to you. The colleague who has been claiming credit for the work of others. This friend always has a crisis, just when you need to help them back. The relative who alters history to escape responsibility. Even if you've always noticed these trends, you used to keep silent to maintain harmony. A fundamental change has now occurred. Telling the truth now comes at a lower cost than remaining silent. Yellow heart if you feel the divine love. Now is the time to share. Click the super thank you button on YouTube to contribute $50 or more and help us spread God's blessings. What you do is being watched and serves as a seed, and in the future it will come back to you a millionfold. You have been drawing new energies into your life at the same time that you have been going through these interpersonal earthquakes. Some people in our society have been looking for someone authentic, which is exactly what others are fleeing. Someone who refuses to support their delusions or condone their flaws. They seek challenge. They wish to develop. Even when it shows where they need to develop, they still want to be seen clearly. These folks are appreciative of your truth sight, not scared of it. This includes the individual from your past who has been getting ready to get back in touch with you. They've been seeing your change from afar and have realized, very shockingly, that they weren't prepared for you before. It wouldn't work the way they used to try to wow you with stories that didn't quite match up, try to disguise their troubles to be more attractive, and present a well-manicured image of themselves. Anything less than total truthfulness now seems startling and unsustainable in your presence because your energy has changed so drastically. You would have ultimately pointed out the same problems that this person has been working on for months. They have been working on their emotional detachment, financial instability, and propensity to tell people what they want to hear rather than what is true. They became intensely aware of the areas in which they were living in denial because they were around your level of authenticity, not because you required these adjustments. Their development has been accelerated by your very presence. In the meantime, the friend who has been avoiding you is facing their own issues. They are aware that you have identified their recurrent patterns, such as their tendency to play the victim in every story, their use of drama to sidestep dealing with actual problems, and their manipulation of compassion to garner attention. They're afraid of what you might say about their performance, not upset with you for pointing it out. A greater part of them is immobilized by the embarrassment of acknowledging how much of their lives have been based on evading responsibility, but a smaller part of them longs to come clean and start anew with total honesty. The dynamics at work have turned into an intriguing testing ground for how people behave when faced with the truth. You are now the one who poses the queries that no one else is willing to pose. It's only normal to react in a meeting with sincere interest in the sources, technique, and logic behind someone's assertions. This is intellectual honesty in action, not interrogation. However, your strategy feels novel and perhaps risky in a society where the majority of people believe information based more on who says it than on its veracity. This change has remarkable repercussions. Your surroundings are beginning to give other truth seekers the confidence to speak up. The focus of conversations has shifted from rumors and conjecture to facts and solutions. Because you've increased the bar for what constitutes reliable information in your sphere of influence, people are starting to reconsider statements they can't back up, not because they're fearful of you particularly. However, your closest connections are undergoing the most significant shifts. Calling someone out wasn't the only goal of that explosive fight that exposed months' worth of observations. It was also about refusing to continue engaging in communal deception. You've come to the point where it feels like you're betraying your own integrity by acting as though you're blind to the obvious issues. You have to lie to yourself in order to ignore someone who is lying to you, and you aren't willing to do that for phony peace anymore. Although this dedication to the truth has led to some awkward situations, it has also produced surprising abundance. You may now devote your focus to creative endeavors, deep friendships, and personal development instead of worrying about how other people might react to your candor. Relationships that thrive on honesty and sincere support are replacing those that couldn't withstand your genuineness. If you send us a super thank you of $20, it is the first grain of blessing that falls on the soil of hope. Over time, it becomes a tree that bears fruit in someone's life. This revelation has had a special impact on your romantic life. People come to you with specific goals and well-planned identities, only to find that you can see straight through their performance from the start. The individual who recently distanced themselves wasn't rejecting you. Rather, they were rejecting the tiresome idea of continuing to pretend like a different person around someone who was obviously not buying their act. They understood that you would eventually find every contradiction in their story, every instance in which their words and deeds were at odds. You're not attempting to reveal someone's flaws or catch them lying. Your sincere inquiry and compassion are the foundations of your truth sight. Your instinct is to make room for someone to securely remove their mask when you see them having difficulty being honest. You're giving them the immense satisfaction of being recognized and appreciated for who they truly are, not for what they believe they should be. You're not trying to make anyone feel inferior, because it clarifies why some people are drawn to your energy while others run away from it. This distinction is essential. People that are prepared to grow see your truth sight as a gift that can help them grow more quickly. They see that love, not condemnation, is the source of your readiness to acknowledge and express challenging realities. However, your presence is perceived as a danger to the meticulously crafted reality of those who remain committed to their delusions. This revelation has grown more strong in the context of your familial dynamics. Patterns that have persisted for years, if not decades, are now being addressed. The family member that is constantly in need of saving but never grows from their errors. The relative who alters history in order to escape accountability for their decisions. The generational trends of manipulating emotions under the pretext of love. Your family system has been rocked by your willingness to publicly identify these dynamics. In an attempt to shame you back into your previous position as the one who keeps silent for the sake of harmony, some family members are reacting angrily. Others are incredibly relieved that someone has the guts to confront the evident issues that everyone has been skirting for years. Others remain on the sidelines, waiting to see if speaking the truth brings about healing or damage. Dove, brother and sister, everything done in faith is returned in God's abundance. You can donate $100 using the Super Thank You button and be part of this divine call. If your roots are connected to Him, your fruit will be blessed. The way this change is impacting your relationship with reciprocity and abundance is the most intriguing part of it. You've started to realize that, despite your sincerity, your generosity has occasionally made it possible for others to act carelessly. When it comes time to make a payment, the friend who consistently forgets their wallet, the relative who doesn't offer to help with costs, but treats your house like a hotel, a co-worker who constantly requests favors, but never provides help in return. It is now hard to overlook these imbalances because of your awareness. The answers were enlightening when you eventually began to directly confront these patterns. Some people became defensive and accused you of being money-focused or selfish. Others appeared genuinely shocked that you had observed their actions, indicating that they had persuaded themselves that their taking was acceptable or undetectable. However, some of them instantly expressed regret and started implementing tangible adjustments to bring your relationships back into balance. You have learned an important lesson about human nature from this process. Most individuals do not intentionally take advantage of others, but they will do so to the extent that it is allowed, without facing repercussions. Your prior quiet regarding imbalances was enabling rather than kind. In fact, you're offering individuals the chance to become better friends, family, and co-workers by speaking up against unjust dynamics. All of these changes have been seen by the person from your past who has been getting ready to get back in touch with you. They've understood that they need to be much more prepared to approach you now than they would have been a year ago. They cannot just arrive with the same old tales, unsolved problems, and avoidance strategies they always relied on. Any discrepancy between what individuals say and do is reflected in your energy, which is turned into a mirror. Being around someone with your degree of authenticity has made them acutely aware of the areas in which they were living in denial. Therefore, this person has been working hard on themselves, not because you asked them to. They had been talking about their connection with money, their emotional openness, and their propensity to steer clear of uncomfortable topics. They know that in your presence, anything less than total honesty would be startling and untenable. However, they are not the only ones who have changed as a result of your awakening. The friend who has been withdrawing is also facing the consequences of their actions. They're beginning to realize that your truth sight is just your perspective on the world and isn't a weapon. They're starting to understand that your desire to point out issues stems from compassion rather than harshness. They want to get back in touch, but they are aware that doing so will call for a degree of accountability and vulnerability they have never experienced. To put it bluntly, the truth is still unknown. It has been perverted. It has been suppressed by fear, algorithms, and censorship. But your heart never ceased seeing reality. You're still here for that reason. You never tapped out because of this. Because the simulation glitch was felt underfoot. You're done waiting for permission to ascend because you know that this world is crooked. A greater pattern emerges when all of these plot lines come together. Not only did you undergo a personal metamorphosis, but you also activated a frequency that impacts everyone inside your range of influence when you realized your truth sight. While some people oppose this frequency and remove themselves from it, Others align with it and grow quickly. However, nobody stays the same. It all makes perfect sense now that abundance is pouring into your life. You make room for relationships that are reciprocal when you stop supporting those who take without providing. You send a message to the universe that you're ready for more when you don't settle for less than you deserve. You attract opportunities that are compatible with your integrity when you act in a way that is consistent with your principles. Internally, there may be the biggest shift. Your enthusiasm about what the truth might reveal has taken the place of the tiredness you once had from always controlling how other people would react to your candor. As you've gotten to know people who share your dedication to honesty, the loneliness that comes with being the only one who seems to notice certain things has vanished. Your fear of speaking up has been replaced by confidence in your capacity to manage any responses that may arise. Finally, the person from your past is prepared to come close to you, but they are being completely honest about their past shortcomings and their most recent development. They are aware that a foundation of pure truth is necessary for this reconnection to succeed. They are giving you the gift of getting to know them as they truly are, not attempting to impress you with a flawless presentation. The friend who has been avoiding the talk is getting ready to have it. They're prepared to own up to the trends you've noticed and accept accountability for how they've affected your relationship. They now realize that their unwillingness to take responsibility was the issue, not your truth sight. If your heart is moved to give $50, that love carries the good news to the world that God says, it is a greater joy to give than to receive. The majority of people function with what is known as selective awareness. They unconsciously filter out facts that would force them to alter their comfortable ideas about themselves or others, and only notice items that confirm their preferred narrative. But this discriminating filter has been removed by your waking. You observe patterns for what they are, not for what individuals would like or say they are, in ways that are both potent and initially isolating. This clarity also applies to romantic dynamics. When you date while waking, you can see right away when someone is acting rather than being real. Within minutes, you can detect if someone is giving you what they believe you want to hear or what is real for them. When someone's energy isn't reflected in their words, when their stories have opportune pauses, or when their degree of interest varies according to your attention span, you can tell right away. This fact is exactly what the person from your past, who has been getting ready to approach you again, has been struggling with. They recall how easily their prior attempts at impression management were exposed. They remember certain instances in which your naive inquiries exposed the flimsy basis of tales they had been telling themselves for years. They now realize that contacting you necessitates a degree of self-honesty they have never engaged in, both with you and with themselves. During months of what they refer to as truth training, this person has methodically examined every aspect of their life, where they have been living in denial or with partial truths. They've faced their connection with money, admitting to financial habits they'd been justifying and debts they'd been downplaying. They've looked at their emotional availability, identifying tendencies to withdraw during disagreements and steer clear of uncomfortable discussions about their needs and limits. This technique has been eagerly welcomed by certain family members. They are relieved to finally confront issues that have been unaddressable yet evident to everyone. The prospect of having genuine interactions with one another rather than meticulously planned family acts excites them. Just a few months ago, they couldn't have had these discussions about money, addiction, mental health, and disappointment. Others are grappling with the seeming breakdown of their family identity, the narratives they have given themselves about who is in charge of what, who is the victim and who is the offender, who is thriving and who is struggling. Basic inquiries concerning facts and evidence are challenging all of these narratives. The way that this familial change is impacting the following generation is quite intriguing. Younger family members are learning from these relationships that you may love someone and still hold them responsible for their actions. They are beginning to realize that true family loyalty is treating one another with enough concern to resolve issues rather than allowing them to arise. Your connection with abundance has changed dramatically as well. You've begun to realize that genuine plenty isn't only about having enough money. It's also about surrounding yourself with people who live honorably, give as much as they receive, and take charge of their own lives rather than relying on others to take care of their problems. This insight has prompted some challenging but essential discussions about money and reciprocity. The friend who expects you to pay for their expenses when you spend time with them, the family member who frequently borrows money but never repays it, or the co-worker who constantly requests professional favors but never provides help in return. The responses to your direct efforts to correct these inequities have been enlightening. Some have modified their behavior and apologized right away, admitting that they were unaware of the tendency. Others have taken a defensive stance, claiming that family members should support one another without keeping score, or that friendships shouldn't be transactional. Some have tried to make you feel bad for observing their stealing, implying that your awareness of unbalance is a sign of your own moral failings. Glowing star, if you want to witness God's miracles, act now. Contribute $100 or more through Super Thank You on YouTube. Your offering is like a seed that comes back to you when planted. Let His light illuminate your steps. Every donation is an echo in His plan. However, the most intriguing answers have come from those who have examined their own relationship with giving and receiving as a result of your candor. They have come to the realization that, rather than believing in the abundance that results from true reciprocity, they have been acting with a scarcity mindset, taking when they could and hoarding when they couldn't. Seeing how you've changed your relationship with abundance has had a special impact on the individual from your past. They recall how giving you used to be, how eager you were to lend others your time, effort, and resources. They also recall how they used that kindness, always being the one receiving but seldom contributing much in return. They have thoroughly examined their giving and receiving routines as part of their preparation to get back in touch with you. They now see that their prior relationship strategy was essentially extractive. They looked for partners who would give them what they wanted, but they hardly ever thought about what they could give in return. They now realize that if they want to contact you again, they must show that they are capable of true reciprocity rather than merely promising it. In other interactions, this person has been exercising reciprocity by recognizing when exchanges fall out of balance and adjusting before being asked. They have learned that giving in an authentic way, from genuine concern rather than duty or coercion, creates a whole new form of relationship that they have never known. A greater pattern emerges as each of these plot lines develops and crosses over. What could be described as a truth vortex, an expanding sphere of truthfulness that impacts everyone who enters it, has been formed by your awakening. No one stays the same, whether they distance themselves to maintain their illusions or join with this energy and evolve quickly. This has ramifications that go well beyond your interpersonal connections. By choosing truth above comfort and refusing to engage in collective denial, you are part of a broader movement of people who are setting an example for what is possible when people cease to accept dishonesty as the norm. This trend is subtle but effective. It spreads through private connections rather than public forums, changing communities one open discussion at a time. Although your tale goes on, this chapter, the one in which you come to value your inner guidance over all outside approval, will be seen as the pivotal moment, when all the disparate tales of your awakening came together to form a cohesive narrative of change, when those who had been fleeing your truth turned around and began running toward it instead. That was the moment when everything that had been building in silence finally found its voice.